yeah, I was stricken with a just bout of despair after the last stream, honestly. I think it was on Monday where we streamed last, and we were talking about Biden, and it was right after the Supreme Court had said, like, oh, presidents can do whatever, and Biden came out and said, like, oh, I'm going to respect the office of the president and not do anything bad at all, ever. And in between then was a lot of speculating on whether Biden would drop out for the good of the race, because, like, and by the way, I've never seen such a concentrated effort from every corner of what is meant to be, you know, what conservatives are always saying is the liberal media. It's always the liberal Democrat media. I've never seen so many editorials and think pieces and talking heads saying, like, Biden should drop the fuck out. The way that people have been legitimately speculating, not in like a 100-to-1 odds, but in a very real way, speculating of Kamala taking the nomination. I've never quite seen anything like it. Some might say that it represents a wider base of knowledge of coming to realize that Joe Biden isn't a great candidate anymore. Never really was, but isn't a great candidate right now, and shouldn't be running in this race. But not the good old Biden campaign. No, they said, no, we gotta stay strong, and we are staying the course. This interview is meant to, I guess, instill a little bit more confidence. Maybe. We'll see.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night. But your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious
Does it need to be turned down?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
Like, there's almost a point where, like, look, Trump has never looked good in a traditional sense, right? But he is good at being loud. He is good at putting forth the idea of pomposity. And with that comes a certain signifier of strength to certain people. The dude who's able to yell the loudest, who's able to gesticulate, who's able to still put on a good show. Trump might be old, starting to ail. He was certainly, like, a lot of people don't take into account the mental strain the office of the president takes on somebody, like, which is a problem and why we need, like, an age limit. It's because after 4 years of being president, your brain is fried. Like, look at Barack Obama, who was a fairly young dude by presidential standards, what he looked like after he left the presidency, and then what he looked like 4 years later. Like, the dude looked entirely different because he had been able to recover from that. It's the same thing that we've seen with Trump, where people are like, oh my gosh, like, Trump seems invigorated and stuff. What hormones, what cocktail of amphetamines do they have him on? It's like, probably nothing. Like, they might have him on, like, some kind of, like, prescribed stimulants or, whatever, but it's probably just taking 4 years off, when the last time a lot of people were paying attention and saw Trump was when he had been in office for 4 years. He was embattled on all sides. And that shit takes a mental toll. Now, Biden is already really old. He's already a not good speaker. And when you compare Biden to Trump, who's had those years to rest up, it just, even though what Trump said in the debate was just universally lies that didn't get fact checked, thank you very much, by the way, mainstream news media. That was a really good decision. But when you put him against this, what seems to be an emaciated skeleton of a person, like, Trump still manages to exude a level of confidence, and for some people will at least appear more competent than Biden. Like, it is so much of Joe Biden's ability to lead or ability to run and be a successful candidate has less to do with his actual platform. Because, like, that shit, that's not being really scrutinized by the mainstream media right now, right? Like, nobody in the mainstream media was questioning, like, oh, Joe Biden's position on Israel is actually, like, leading to the deaths of tens of thousands of people, and they're completely enabling a genocidal regime right now to just go in and wipe out Gazans. Like, nobody gave a fuck. The thing that people are actually looking at is not, it's not the rhetoric of the candidates, unless it's, you know, something batshit and wild that one of them says. It's the presentability. It is the optics, the look of it, the sheen. And Biden's sheen has worn off so long ago. So long ago. I think it's another thing where people were, like, these are concerns that leftists, that even Bernie supporters, which Bernie is an older dude. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of people were bringing these concerns up when Joe Biden was pushed as the front runner over people who were still polling better than him, over people like Pete Buttigieg, which, like, say what you want about Mayor Pete, the dude at least would still be, like, lucid right now. So, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things that I see the same thing happening right now with Project 2025, which Project 2025 hit last year. Like, they released that last year, and I'm just now seeing people. I was talking about it 4 months ago. I went to CPAC, the largest gathering of conservatives, where everything, all of the fucking speakers were going hard on Project 2025. People who had been in Trump's cabinet last time were saying, oh yeah, we're going to use Project 2025 and we're going to do this. We have the Heritage Foundation on our side, and as soon as Trump gets in there, we're going to abolish this, and we're going to destroy this, and we're going to try these people for treason. Like, and just now, and that was months after people had started talking about it. And just now I'm seeing people be like, oh, this Project 2025 thing is somewhat concerning. I'm just like, yeah. So maybe you are right. Maybe this should have happened 6 months ago, but, like, nobody, I think the debate was the moment where people started actually noticing.
You know, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. I mean, the way the debate ran, not my fault, no one else's fault. No one else's fault. And so I just had a bad night. I don't know why.
And how quickly did it come
This
to
is
you
not
that you were having?
This is not instilling confidence. Like, this is just straight out the gate. This is not a good look to just continually answer. We're 4 minutes in. He has basically said the same thing 3 or 4 times, that it is, I just had a bad night. And the reporter is pushing back, being like, well, you kind of, like, you stumped. Like, the reporter is trying as nicely as possible to be like, dog, you fucked up and everybody's super worried. How can we feel confident in your presidency right now? And Biden's best is to just say, I don't know, Jack. Like, I had a bad night. You know, who among us has not had a bad time with the down at the soda fountain? I'm sure that you know it. And, anyway, like, it's not helping, dude. This is not okay.
That bad night.
Well, Kane was having a bad night when I realized that even when I was answering a question, even when they turned his mic off, he was still shouting. And I let it distract me. I'm not blaming it on that. But I realized that I just wasn't in control.
But part of the other concern is that this seems to fit into
Thank you, Fight and Hobbit, for 50 bits. Joe, it doesn't matter that you lied the entire time. You're a politician. You're supposed to show charisma and a little joie de vivre, great use of the term, that voters want to see in their elected officials. Trump should be the easiest layup in political history, and you're biffing it. Like, I think it also has to do with, like, Trump is a bulldog. He's a piece of shit. He's a liar. He's a grifter. He's all that stuff. But at the end of the day, he can also, he's not afraid, technically, like, he is afraid in broad terms. But if you think he can sway an audience to his side, he's not afraid to constantly be on the attack, constantly be making little jabs. And that was the problem, is that Biden is not the candidate to offend, to fire back. Like, he's just not. And so, like, which made him look worse. Every time Trump, again, could have been saying something that was completely false, completely a lie. But when Biden just sits there and takes it, or doesn't defend, or doesn't say something to disprove it, like, it just looks weak. That's the nature of a debate. Like, this they go low, we go high bullshit doesn't work for a blood sport. It just doesn't.
Pattern of decline that has been reported on recently. New York Times had a headline on July 2nd, Biden's lapses are said to be increasingly common and worrisome. Here's what they wrote. People who have spent time with President Biden over the last few months or so said the lapses appear to have grown more frequent, more pronounced, and after Thursday's debate, more worrisome. By many accounts, as evidenced by video footage, observation, and interviews, Mr. Biden is not the same today as he was even when he took office 3.5 years ago. Similar reporting in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Are you the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago?
In terms of successes, yes. I also was the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition. I was also the guy that expanded NATO. I was also the guy that grew the economy. All the individual things that were done were ideas I had or I fulfilled. I moved on. And so, for example, well, that was true then. What's Biden done lately? Today, just announced 200,000 new jobs. We're moving in a direction that no one's ever taken on. I know you know this from the days in the government. I took on Big Pharma. I beat them. No one said I could beat them. I took on all the things we said we got done. We're told we couldn't get done. And part of it is what I said when I ran was I wanted to do three things. Restore some decency to the office. Restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics built from the middle out and the bottom up, the way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better, and unite the country.
But what has all that work over the last 3.5 years cost you physically, mentally,
like
emotionally?
That is the kind of fucking answer we needed at the debate.
I just think it cost me a really bad night, bad run.
God damn it,
but,
Joe.
George, I'm optimistic about this country. I don't think we're a country of losers, that he points out. I don't think America's in tough shape. I think America's on the cusp of breaking through in so many incredible opportunities.
Joe, the problem is the country is not optimistic about you.
The tax system. I'm going to make sure we're in a situation where we have health care for all people, where we're in a position where we have child care and elder care, free up, and all these things. The one thing I'm proudest of is, remember when my economic plan was put forward, a lot of the mainstream economists said it's not going to work. Well, guess what? We now have 16 Nobel laureates, 16 of them in economics, saying that Biden's next term would be, based on what he wants to do, enormous success. Trump's plan would cause a recession, would significantly increase inflation. I've made great progress, and that's what I plan on doing, and we can do this.
I understand that, and I'm not disputing that. What I'm asking you is about your personal...
So, again, that was the kind of shit that would have been good to hear actually on the debate stage, but that does not answer the question. The thing that I was bringing up earlier, like, whether you hate a president or not, I don't think anybody quite understands the strain mentally that a job like that would put on somebody's mind, their mental faculties, which is exactly what Joe Biden isn't answering. And everything... like, that is what everybody is worried about with him. So again, him just completely missing the question, not instilling a lot of confidence here.
I know you said you have an ongoing assessment. Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, I've been able to read for my physicals. Yes, the answer.
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
No one said I had to. No one said, they said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test.
Dude, that's not...
Everything I do. You know, not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today, before I come out here, every single day.
And you have been doing that, and the American people have been watching, yet their concerns about your age and your health are growing. So that's why I'm asking, to reassure them, would you be willing to have the independent medical evaluation?
Watch me there's a lot of time left in this campaign. It's over 125 days.
Dog, there might be a lot of time left in the campaign. There is not, like, no, that is not even true. Like, there's not a lot of time left in the campaign. Like, there's not. I was like, oh yeah, you know, there might be a lot of time, but like, no, because in the grand scheme of things, there's fucking not. There's a couple goddamn months. And then 4 more years of God knows what else. Like, everything he's saying is not actually instilling confidence. It is not a reason why somebody should be believing you. Somebody should be putting their trust, the trust of the nation, you know, democracy is on the ballot and all that shit. Like, those are the talking points he's giving, but he is not saying anything to tangibly make somebody feel better about his performance. Are you, and like, yeah, all he really needed to do was to, like, he went on this whole tirade about, oh, I'm talking to Netanyahu and I'm going up against Putin. The question was, would you be willing to take a cognitive test and, to alleviate the fears of the American people, put it out publicly? And what he basically said was no, in a very wordy way.
George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought it could happen. I'm the guy that put together the South Pacific Initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations, out, not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well.
I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget.
I don't know what the fuck he's talking about stopping Putin. Last time I fucking checked, there's still a war going on there. Like, what are you talking about?
We have, I mean, I just, anyway, I don't want to.
Oh my God!
I have a great.
He did the thing. He's doing the memes. He's doing the memes. Not on purpose. Like, when in my shitty bad impression of Biden like 10 minutes ago, I did that exact same thing. Just like, fuck, man. Fuck, dude.
But I guess my point is, all that takes a toll. Do you have the mental and physical capacity to do it for another 4 years?
I believe so. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I did. Look, I'm running again because I think I understand best what has to be done to take this nation to a completely new level.
I don't think you understand best the room you're in, dude.
And look, the decision recently made by the Supreme Court on immunity, you know, the next president of the United States, it's not just about whether he or she knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's not about a conglomerate of people making decisions. It's about the character of the president. The character of the president is going to determine.
It's also like he gets in the most broad fucking West Wing, like, liberal terms imaginable. He gets what's at stake, right? He gets the democracy is on the ballot shit. He does not get that he's old as shit and everybody is worried. That scares the fuck out of everybody.
They said in 2023, all the tough races we're not going to win. I went into all those areas, all those districts, and we won.
All that is true, but 2020 was a close race.
Hey, Tara,
and
Billie
your
Jean.
approval rating has dropped significantly since then. I think the last poll I saw was about 36%. The number of Americans who think you're too old to serve has doubled since 2020. Wouldn't a clear-eyed political calculus tell you that it's going to be much tougher to win in 2024?
Like, not when you're running against a pathological.
Not when you're running. See, this is the kind of shit I actually kind of wish that they would have had more questions like this at the debate, because this is a very clear, concise way to ask the president, like, to leave very little room for interpretation. Not just saying people are worried about your mental acuity, people are worried about your performance, people are worrying about your age, but laying out how that will be different in 4 years, how that will be different running against Trump, how they've changed in the last couple years. And I'm fucking sorry, but this, like, middle of the road, like, oh, we got to beat Trump by any means necessary, is not, like, that is not telling why you are the sole person who can do that. Because fucking, let me tell you, Joe Biden isn't. Joe Biden, like, if the best we can do against a narcissistic, pathological, pedophile, rapist, convicted felon is this spray-tanned skeleton, fuck, dude. Fuck. Like, winning against Trump should be a fucking slam dunk. It should be so fucking easy to do. Like, you just need a candidate who is not even willing to sink down to the level of Trump, because that would mean being a liar, lying on stage, just making shit up off the cuff all the fucking time that get easily disproven. You don't have to do that. But Joe Biden is still, like, considers himself so above the petty attacks and a lot of the fucking centrist libs, Nancy Pelosi, all those fuckers consider themselves above, like, slinging some shit. And the reason why this should be such an easy slam dunk is because there's so much. You have a mountain of, like, plagued bodies, and all you got to do is launch them over the wall of the city, and job's done. They'll work their own magic. And they're like, you know what? Seems a little dirty. I don't really want to. Seems like we might get our hands a little dirty. That doesn't seem like our bag. We want to go low. No, we want to go high. They go low. They go low. We go high. They're the deplorables. We aren't the deplorables. We aren't the deplorables. Come on. It's just like, well, fucking great. Rad. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Like, it was, and the people have been talking about the Epstein documents that just got, I guess they just got unredacted or shared from the Ghislaine trial. But I feel like I've either seen or heard that story recounted. Maybe it was, during the trial somebody had talked about it, but I have heard that horrifying story recounted before. For those who don't know, you can go look it up. But God, I hate that. I hate it so much. But a anonymous woman, Mary Doe, on the case of Epstein came forward and alleged, multiple, I believe, Mary Does, I think there were two, alleged that as 13 or 14-year-olds, Donald Trump assaulted them, like sexually assaulted them, as facilitated by Epstein, which is not hard to fucking believe. And again, I don't know if it was just recently disclosed, but it seems like, a couple more people are starting to share it and talk about it, which is good. But, like, the media really isn't, like, because it's an allegation. It's alleged. And that right there is a good example of the difference between conservative media and left wing, or the liberal media, because liberal media would be like, oh, well, we can't do that. That's an allegation. If that shit came out, if an allegation came out about Biden, about anybody on Capitol Hill that was a Democrat, that's all would be in the fucking Fox News cycle for 2 weeks. Daily Wire would be all over that shit, eating it up. Like, that's the level of shit slinging they need to be in. Irish DC, thank you for 100 biddies. Key part being that I talk to because he's surrounded by a close group of senior staffers that only feed him news that keeps him happy while every other staffer is shitting themselves around him. Yeah, like that's another thing. Did not inspire confidence Biden to be like, oh, well, the pollsters I've talked to, it's like, the pollsters you talk to want to keep their jobs, dude. Like, I I don't know how to tell you. Yeah, like I wouldn't trust anybody who works with a president to give them an honest opinion at any fucking level. Like, I don't think you get to work with the president in any capacity by being honest. Like, I just don't.
As I said, they pointed out in that debate he lied 27, 28 times a time.
No, yeah, this, I mean, somebody's saying he's digging his heels. This entire thing has been digging his heels.
How he brought down inflation, how this is a guy who, unlike only other president,
like,
other than him,
we know all this
more
shit.
Jobs that he created.
We know this. This is not new information. This is just the same shit that he was out on stage repeating. That does not mean that you are the Dragon Slayer, right? Like, to point out, like, oh my gosh, over there is a dragon. Like, that doesn't make you the dude who's strong enough to take him down. Like, fucking, you have not, aside from a spotty track record that you are attributing things that you didn't necessarily do to your administration, you have not given a reason why you politically are the force to take on Donald Trump. Fuck, man.
Guy wants to undo every single thing I've done. Every single thing.
I understand that. I understand that's why you want to stay in the race. But if you convince yourself that only you can defeat him,
yeah,
I convinced myself of two things. I'm the most qualified person to beat him, and I know how to get things done.
Fuck.
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
It depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Well, I mean, on a more practical.
Fuck, dude. He asks him, do you think that you might be delusional? That you might be the one convincing yourself that you're the only one to beat him? And Biden's like, yeah. It's like, okay. And, like, he tries to take a step back. He's like, and I know the reporter's like, okay, deep breath. Who could convince you might not be the right person to beat him? And Biden's just like, well, I mean, the Lord God Almighty. I'm just like, fuck, man.
Level. Washington Post just reported in the last hour that Senator Mark Warner is assembling a group of senators together to try and convince you to stand down because they don't think you can win.
Well, Mark is a good man, but we've never had that. He also tried to get the nomination too. Mark and I have a different perspective. I respect him.
And if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi come down and say, we're worried that if you stay in the race, we're going to lose the House and the Senate, how will you respond?
I go into detail with them. I've spoken to all of them in detail, including Jim Clyburn. Every one of them. They all said I should stay in the race. Stay in the race. None of the people said I should leave.
But if they do?
Well, it's like, they're not going to do that.
You sure?
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Look, I mean, if the Lord Almighty came down and said, Joe, get out of the race, I'll get out of the race. The Lord Almighty's not coming down. I mean, these hypotheticals, George. But
it's not that hypothetical anymore. I grant that they have not requested the meeting.
It's not that hypothetical.
I've met with them. I've met with a lot of these people. I've talked with them regularly. I had an hour conversation with Hakeem. I had more time with that than Jim Clyburn. I spent time with many hours off and on the last little bit with Chuck Schumer. It's not like I had all the governors.
I agree that the Lord Almighty is not going to come down, but if you are told reliably from your allies, from your friends and supporters in the Democratic Party, in the House and the Senate, that they're concerned you're going to lose the House and the Senate if you stay in, what will you do?
I'm not going to answer that question. It's not going to happen.
Oh my
What's your plan
God.
to turn the campaign around?
You saw it today. How many people you draw crowds like I drew today? You find me any more enthusiastic than today? Huh?
I mean, I don't think you want to play the crowd game. Donald Trump can draw big crowds. There's no question about that.
How you can draw?
What's your plan to turn this around, Joe? Well, you saw it today. Now, I'm not sure to which speech, because it's a campaign trail, so speeches are just happening all the fucking time. I'm not sure which speech they're referring to, but if this interview is an indication, fucking yikes, dude. fucking, like, just yikes. Like, this is the...
And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the good job as I know I can do. That's what this is about. Look, George, think of it this way. You've heard me say this before. I think
that the gravity of that moment of him saying, like, Mr. President, like putting a little, with all due respect, spin on it. Mr. President, I've never seen somebody with poll numbers that low get reelected. And Biden's just like, well, those aren't the polls I'm seeing. Great. Red. Okay. Well, I guess
states in the world is at an inflection point.
As long as he's not seeing those polls.
The next several years are going to determine what the next 6-7 decades look like. And who's going to be able to hold NATO together like me? Who's going to be able to be in a position where I'm able to keep the Pacific Basin in a position where we're at least checkmating China now? Who's going to do that? Who has that reach? Who knows all this? We're going to have, I guess, a good way to judge me is you're going to have now the NATO conference here in the United States next week. Come listen. See what they say.
Mr. President, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
ABC News also offered a one-on-one interview to Donald Trump after the debate. He declined. Let's bring in our political team for what they're hearing. Let me start out with our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. And John,
I do want to watch a little bit of this because the look on everybody's faces is dire. Everybody there is just like, yeah, man. Not only is he old, the strain, the mental and physical strain of being president. Like, he might be and for an old dude, at least physically, he's in pretty good shape. Like, he still goes bicycling and he still goes on jogs and all that shit. But, like, he's still a fucking old dude. Like, that only goes so far. Mr. Oakby, that freeze frame, why does he look like somebody just dropped a piano in his parked car? This right here, yeah, this is how I would feel if I were a talking head pundit after seeing that, and people are like asking, hey, what's on your mind? Where are we falling on the Biden campaign? This is what they call consternation.
Well, George, look, Biden looked better and certainly more coherent than he looked during the debate. But there was nothing in this interview that is calming nerves of jittery Democrats who fear that Joe Biden is on a trajectory to lose this race, to lose to Donald Trump. In fact, for some of those people, the interview is raising new concerns, particularly the fact that he is unwilling or unaware of the fact that he is in a dire situation here regarding the campaign, that he is losing in the view of many Democrats. And frankly, in the polls, you cited that he is losing to Donald Trump. And there was one question that you asked where his answer is particularly, I believe, alarming to some of those Democrats. You asked him how he will feel in January if he has lost to Donald Trump.
I was talking about
all that he has warned
this is
what happened came to pass, and this was his answer. He said, "I'll feel as long as I gave it my all and did the best job I know I can do, that's what this is about." One prominent ally of the president simply responded to me, "Wow," when I asked about that question. So the bottom line here, there was nothing in this interview that will force Joe Biden out of the race. There was no, major thing that will convince him or any of his allies. I believe they have to go. But there's also nothing in this interview that will calm the nerves of Democrats who are saying it is time for him to get out.
Yeah, that is like, that's the real problem, right? Is that like an interview like this and releasing it a couple days later, this is something that was meant to be reassuring, right? Like he did seem more lucid. He seemed a little bit more on top of it. But the answers he gave were still vague as hell. He dodged every major question when it came to his mental acuity, when it came to verifying these things that might set somebody at ease more. And it's so, like, it's so frustrating. because at the end of the day, he is the one who gets to decide. Like, yeah, he gets total control. Remember? I mean, he did, you know, not unilateral total control, only for official acts. But his official act is to continue running against, like, a credibly accused rapist hamburglar. This fucking country, man. I don't... Like, what do you do? You know? It's not like we have a viable third party candidate. I know if I do a stream highlight on this, I'm going to get a bunch of people in the replies saying like, oh, well, Joe Biden's the best option we got. And I've never said otherwise. Like, there's this idea that, again, a lot of people have that, like, you shouldn't, that criticizing the people at the head of the movement you might agree with is doing the dirty work of the other party. And no, that's not true. Because the more you don't criticize, the more you turn a blind eye to the failures of your own movement, especially of the people in leadership, the more room you give for them to become complacent, for yes men. Which is like, that's where we're at. We needed more criticism like this. We've always needed it in American politics, as long as I've been fucking alive. And it does nobody any good to put your head in the sand, like to be a person who is like, oh, you shouldn't criticize Biden. At least he's better than Trump. Because like, yeah, I'm like, people are like, oh, I don't want to vote for Biden because he's enabling a genocidal regime in Israel, because he has turned tail on fucking trans rights. With a ruling that just came out, or not a ruling, but his words the other day were actually already cited on a ruling against trans healthcare. His question about, or he put out a statement about, I think it was still in Pride Month, technically, about how like minors shouldn't be allowed to have any kind of transitionary care. And so it's like cool. I'm supposed to forget all that shit and just shut up. Like, I mean, yeah, to a lot of like libs and the riding with Biden folks, like, yeah, that is like, you need to shut up because democracy is on the ballot. Because this is life or death. The stakes have never been higher. And while that is true, the problem is that the stakes keep getting fucking higher because of the complacency of people like them. Because of the complacency of people like Joe Biden, who have done literally nothing to stem the tide of rhetoric, not just of Trump, but people like him. Like, people, we had a thing, I think we talked about it a couple months ago, and this would have been before, I think this was around CPAC, and it would have been before the debate and all this other stuff, because at the end of the CPAC video, I basically say, like, look, I don't fucking like Biden either, but dog, I have traveled to the conservative Mecca. I have seen with my own eyes the shit that they are planning, the shit that, like, here's the other thing that I hope I got across in the CPAC video, because I took a lot of footage of the crowd and their reactions to things. The thing that people don't get is that it is not just like Stephen Miller and craven psychopaths like him that are, you know, sitting in the corner like, yes, I'll be able to finally enact my master plan. Like, it's not just them. It is like middle-aged Midwestern housewives and steel workers and people who in another time, in another place in America, would be the median voter, would be reasonable people who probably could still be swayed to reason. Hopefully. God, I hope so. But people who you would look at and describe as entirely normal. Yet they have been, I don't think brainwashing is the right term, because they're willingly buying into this stuff, but they have been convinced of the great evil and the need for violence against their ideological opponents from over 8 years of Donald Trump shit. And whether they were indoctrinated and radicalized through QAnon or anti-vax movements or whatever is beside the point. People are not prepared for how bad it might really get. If all this shit from Project 2025 actually happens, which I talked about in the Project 2025 video, it's going to be a lot harder to... The way people are talking about it now is as if it will go off without a hitch and they will transform America into fascist theocracy day one. That won't be how it happens. Even if they somehow get everybody to hop on board on the conservative movement and like, okay, we're going to do this, and this, it's not going to like manifest in that way. Like there is far too much of the administrative state that they want to take apart that they can't just sledgehammer it all away as much as they want to. But that doesn't mean there won't be seismic shifts. That doesn't mean that day one they won't try to start doing that stuff.